Now, it's been some time coming, but soon enough the Rubicon will be crossed and the biggest event in Nigeria's political calendar, short of the inauguration itself, will begin. And that's the process of trying to get Bola Tinubu's election victory to be legally quashed. Now, let's be clear that whatever portents you have and whatever crystal balls you look into, it's by no means clear who's got the upside in that licit process as we prepare to enter into the realm. But along the way to that mammoth occurrence, something like an icicle of foreboding is forming, with allegations of deep fake audio leaks, questions being raised about the limits of freedom of expression, amid warnings from the Nigerian government to Peter Obi and his running mate Yusuf Datti Baba Ahmed against inviting insurrection, and of course calls for the legal issues around the election to be resolved before the swearing-in ceremony on May the 29th. So how do we unpack all that? Well, for more on this, I'm joined now in the studio by the Director General of the Labour Party's Campaign Council, High Chief Akin Osuntokun. Thank you very much indeed for coming in.
You're welcome.
And High Chief as opposed to Low Chief or No Chief at all.
The meaning of my title is actually Field Marshal. Balloon. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we might add that to your string of titles already. But
yeah, exactly.
Thank you very much indeed for coming in. Where do things stand now from your perspective? Because there won't be any more reckoning beyond the courts, will there?
Isn't that sufficient? Well, the process, the court, going to the court is an active is an active process, you know, of the election cycle. So it's a very significant, process. Not any less significant, you know, than the actual voting itself. Because if the actual voting is becomes victim of fraud, you know, of criminal manipulation, then the role of the court is to redress that, you know. So actually, the courts seem to have is a final habitat, you know, on the elections. So
and do you feel confident?
Yes, of course. And of course, I mean, the weight of that's why there is all these distractions all over the place. You know, the ploy, we had this today, another thing tomorrow. Is a ploy, you know, a kangaroo trick to crowd out, you know, the weight. You know, there are weighty allegations in the petition, and they know incontestable infractions, you know. So what they've come up is this ploy, you know, to deflect, to distract, you know, from the core issue at the moment, which is the petition lying before the court. If I were in their position too, I would be jittery. You know, the scripture says the wicked run, even though nobody is chasing him. If you are a receiver of a stolen good, you are going to be apprehensive. So I understand the state of paranoia that they are in, and many of these things being bandied around, interim government, forging something. It's all part of a ploy, you know, to diffuse, you know, what is going on with the courts.
Well, to be entirely fair, I mean, I understand what you're saying about them, the other side reacting to your description of them as reacting to your petition in court. But I mean, beyond those people who you would expect to react, I mean, there's been a whole slew of independent senior advocates of Nigeria who have examined the grounds on which you filed your petition and are saying that you don't really stand a chance.
Charles, I'm surprised you are bringing it up.
Well, I'm simply airing the other side.
You said a set of signs, so we also have the same number. If no more number of signs,
I like that.
We take, you know. Well, you know, as I said, you know, I've seen the petition, I've gone through it, and I've seen a lot of evidence. It is not
to be trifled with.
It is not contestable. It will take, you know, I don't know how to put it, an unconscious, or somebody who lacks conscientiousness as a judge to rule, you know, Otherwise, it's too brazen. It's like 1+1 is 2. It's as clear as that. You know.
So what is the sequence of events now? I mean, are you getting any sense of when this will come up in the tribunal?
Of course, I mean, within this week or next week, the case will start, you know, at the tribunal and then the appeal court.
Right.
So it's not. We are fully prepared and ready for. I mean, we have a solid case. You know, they were so careless, you know, and reckless in the manipulation of the results that you don't need the primary school boy who will tell you that there's something wrong here. You know.
Well, let's talk about the corners of the picture then, because I mean, you talked about what you described as distractions and all the things that are going on, but those things are going on, and therefore they fall within the news space. Let's talk about the audio leak of a purported private conversation between Peter Obi and Bishop David Oyedepo, in which Mr. Obi is alleged to have described the elections as a religious war. The Labour Party, your party, says it's a deep fake of Mr. Obi's voice concocted by the APC. Tell us more about your line of argument there.
There's nothing to add to it. I mean, a concussion is a concussion. Now look, I don't know if, well, you must have been following the CNN of recent, you know, and it's a coincidence. I'm sure that you will have had the news that on the negative potential of artificial intelligence. And it's being led by
did something on it last night.
Exactly.
Yeah, on this
program. You know,
program.
this is precisely the reason they are calling for a ban, a temporary ban on the development of artificial, because it can serve these kind of devious purposes.
They're called sound-alikes, that part of artificial intelligence. But there's no evidence that yours, I mean, you haven't presented incontrovertible evidence that yours was a sound-alike rather than him.
It's you that you are presenting it. The onus is on you to prove that it is authentic. Not if you say it's okay, prove that it is authentic. I'm saying that it is not, right? It's and let us see. As a matter of fact, it's a good occasion for you to bring out those behind it, because that is very important.
Yeah, but
those who did the concussion,
they're not in a court of law. You're in a court of public opinion.
Yes. And
when it comes to public opinion, people can easily be influenced by simply the existence of that tape. So the onus is on you to come out and say that this is not true.
That is precisely what you have said. Yeah. And I remain, you know, in that position. You know, weaponization of religion, right, was actually introduced to Nigerian politics in this electoral cycle, you know, by those who came up with the ticket of this Muslim ticket. Pray. How are people expected to react to that, right? I don't believe in religious politics, but look, we are looking to balance your ticket, right? And the best way you think you can balance it, right, is to do that which is, you know, offensive, objectively offensive to a segment of the people. Will you blame any Christians from the north to see himself as being under siege by that kind of ticket? It's an offensive. Those are the people who are actually triggering a religious war in the country. They came out, they institutionalized it. It wasn't that they were talking about it on a phone. That was their ticket. Religious division, the weaponization of religion. That is what the ticket they gave us. It is like what? Doing the wrong thing to attain, for them, the end justifies the means. That is the attitude of taking. You are inviting people to see you as a champion.
The APC have, of course, I mean, they pounced on this, accusing Mr. Obi of promoting a religious agenda. Questions, of course, being raised on the other side of how such a private conversation went public, because it is, of course, illegal to record someone's phone call without their consent. But nevertheless, it is now in the public domain. and you have to admit that it raises uncomfortable questions for your candidate.
Yes, well, that is precisely that. Look, let us put it in the context, the political context within we are in. Look, first and foremost, were it to be true, I mean, it was said to have been recorded somewhere around Christmas last year. If you have that kind of item with you, is it more reasonable or is it more useful for you to use it before the election or after?
Well, it depends on when you got your hands on.
No,
I mean, that's really that's the answer to that question.
No. Listen, those who have the capacity to do that, right? I don't know. They are working in concert. It's like a choreograph with the other what they are doing, with the others are doing. My own belief is that it is a concussion. When the weight of the petition, probably their own lawyers have been saying, look, you have a bad case. Go and look for things that can serve as powerful distractions or deflections from what we are doing, to agitate the mind of people. And to a large extent, whoever is the devil incarnate behind that, you've got to give it to him. The manipulation of opinion to achieve.
But did that conversation take place?
No.
Because the reason I asked that is, I mean, you could make the argument that the conversation, parts of it were doctored, but I mean, or not. But the point is, did it actually take place?
No, it didn't take place. That's what I'm saying. Look, that was
saying that from start to finish, it doesn't. It's not. It's a completely manufactured tape.
Yes, it is.
Right. So are we likely to see Peter Obi come out and publicly clarify, as you are doing, whether this is fake or not, rather than having you or some other person who represents him come out and do it?
I don't think that he should do that. He will just be giving oxygen to the mischief. It's not. I've told you the purpose is meant to serve. Did you, all through the campaign, did you hear him in a slip of tongue refer to anything near that, anything divisive of Nigeria? The first thing he will tell you, don't vote for me because I'm Igbo. Don't vote for me because I'm a Christian. That is the standard line in his campaign rhetorics. Not one. There was no slip of tongue. If you were the kind of people they are portraying in that tape, you will have not be that. So this is what we are dealing. I will not advise him to speak to what. He will just keep. I've stated the position of the campaign, of course, which is knowledge. So what purpose will it serve by him to say that, look, it's trash, But as I said, it's a devious ploy, to agitate the minds of the people to, and of course they are not just doing that. They are doing so many things alongside it. Interim government, treason, these are the words that are being
well, let me come to
out.
that treason bit, because I'm sure you heard the latest warning from the Minister of Information, Lai Mohammed, to the Labour Party's presidential candidate, your candidate, Peter Obi, against causing an uprising in Nigeria over the 2023 election results. He suggested that Mr. Obi and his running mate Dati Baba Ahmed have been saying that Nigeria's democracy will come to an end if Bola Tinubu is sworn in on May the 29th. Mr. Mohammed suggested that Mr. Obi was trying to incite an uprising in Nigeria. What's your reaction to that?
Mr. Obi never said he didn't never say that there will be. The only person who made a statement in that respect was the vice presidential candidate. And I remember what he said was that he qualified it. He said on the basis of the evidences available, publicly available, it will tantamount to something of a coup, right? To swear in the beneficiary of such a that's what he said. Look, what is the basis? Why are we then in court? If you are pursuing the court, all of us, everybody's attention is solely concentrated on this, the court matter now. So what does it, why will anybody, in any case, look, the gentleman who is making the allegation, that is his second nature. I'm sure you know that. People have changed his name to Lai Mohammed, and he has been doing that consistently. So he's living up to his reputation. But let me remind you of something. In 2015, he was the publicity secretary of the APC. Go and look at the newspapers at that time. Threatening to form parallel government, render Nigeria ungovernable. There's nothing they didn't say. The baboon and soul will flow in blood. So unimaginable provocations, just because he had the president at that time who was a complete gentleman. Now does it compare with anything on the scale of what they have said? In 2019, the same Lai Mohammed was saying PDP was planning an insurrection in the country, civil war or something. They are going to start with 8 states. And when it was going to start. So you look at it, when he made that statement, the man was talking off his head. He was lying. And of course, the lie was proven subsequently. He never made reference to it again. That what I said at that time turned out to be a lie, turned out to be fake. And that is his calling card. So that is what is happening. I don't take anything that comes from him. He was on record about a week ago saying that this election is the best election that has ever been conducted in Nigeria. Of course, when it comes from him, I have no problems. He lives in a world of alternative reality, alternative facts, and bandied it around when it suits him.
The question, though, is, I understand the points you're making, and I understand your sense that they're trying to distract you from the path that you're taking. But where does all this put the Labour Party and the obedient movement today? How harmful has this been to your cause? Because it's intended to get some kind of, elicit some reaction, not just from you, but from the public, and possibly sway their minds in a particular direction, either with the truth of it, or with the malice of it, or however you want to construe it.
No, fortunately, the obedience, the backbone of the obedience, they are the enlightened, quite confident members of the younger generation. So it's very difficult to fool those people or sway them from the path of truth to lie. That is not. It's a challenge that we'll take, in our stride. It will come. There's no. We are up to the challenge. Look, once we are dealing with a different kind, of a political, movement now than what has happened before. Nobody is in there to go and steal money. Nobody is there to go and get position. Nobody. It's a sense of sacrifice for the country and the future of the country. So when all these things come, the thing that pains me is that it now reveals, the enormity, of the challenge that anybody intending to rectify what is wrong with Nigeria is going to face. Right? Look, I've been trying to look around for a parallel. I've never seen in any country, maybe not in Nigeria, where you declare the result of a presidential election at 4 a.m. Have you? So look, these are the kind of things that give them away. As at the time he was declaring the election, results were being uploaded all over the country. They put paper patch together and just declare the thing like that. 4 a.m.
Well, they would argue that it doesn't really matter what time they declared it. That's when they got the final results.
No. It's part of what doesn't belong to you. You want to steal something, you steal it under the cover of darkness. That makes.
Well, that sounds a bit superstitious, doesn't it?
But that is what. That is the analogy. If you are confident of your winning, if the thing they have done cannot meet the scrutiny of light, of daylight, and they started that symbolically by getting the certificate in the night, where the witches and so on.
And the horned sort of demons and things when they come abroad, eh?
Exactly.
But what is the pathway now to victory that you see for Mr. B? I mean, I know you talked about the courts and so on, but I mean, he came third, and
according to INEC.
Yes, and the difference between the votes that INEC said he got and those that Bola Tinubu got is 2,693,193 votes. In addition to that, Mr. Obi scored 25% according to INEC's results in 17 states, which is below the threshold of 24 states. I mean, how are you going to upturn all that in court?
But that is precisely what we are contesting. Those figures are fictitious.
No, I know, but what I'm not saying that I know that it's fictitious. I'm saying that I know that you're contesting it, and what I'm wondering is, how are you going to upturn that in court? Because I mean, I've seen your, as they call it, your dope sheet that you submitted to the court, and I mean, I don't see on this particular thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a long sort of, it's a long thing that you put in. I haven't read all of it, to be fair.
You haven't.
But I'm wondering, in a nutshell,
yes. See, let me just give you
what it is that you've. Okay, just hold on for a minute there, because we're looking at live pictures of Donald Trump. You might have heard us talking about Donald Trump earlier in the day. Mr. Trump, who was arraigned at a court in Manhattan today. We've been covering it all evening on Arise News. He's just left the courthouse, and presumably he's going to the airport and is going to board his Boeing 757 to return to his Mar-a-Lago estate in Florida. But more information coming out of that Manhattan courthouse now. As you know, Donald Trump faced criminal charges there. He pleaded not guilty to 34 felony charges of falsifying business records, and that's the latest that's emerging from that courthouse in New York. And we're looking at live pictures there of his cars he's in, his motorcade, heading presumably either towards Trump Towers, where he spent the night, or to the airport. He had said that he was going to board a flight and go, his plane of course, and go straight back to Florida, where his Mar-a-Lago estate is based, but we don't know for sure. But we're looking at those live pictures, and it's been an extraordinary day in court in New York today. And of course, Akin Osuntokun is with me in the studio. He is the Director General of the Labour Party's campaign council. I mean, do you see this sort of thing ever happening in Nigeria in the context of what we've been discussing? A former president, somebody as high up as that, arraigned before a court on a matter of law and the rule of law and justice?
Yes, of course. Look, even in the instance you are citing, it's unprecedented.
It is.
Yeah, and so
in America.
Exactly. So I mean that. But
it has happened.
It has happened. Or the same can happen here. But you see, it has happened under different circumstances. You know, like in African countries, when the military takes over. Like in Ghana, when Rawlings took over, he arrested all the 4 former presidents. You know, and that's not the standard I'm recommending for Nigeria, but that had happened. You know, not under, but it's something. You know, although it has happened in France and Israel, Sarkozy was found indicted also.
Sarkozy in France.
And then one prime minister of Israel, I forgot. Even Netanyahu. So it's not as but Trump himself is an unprecedented. You know, Trump in any society, even by African standard, Trump is a failure. Is somebody you cannot wish. He sets out deliberately to sow poison, to look you in the eye and tell you that black is white, and get people to accept it to the point of believing in to want to shoot other people. we watch the American elections globally. We saw it. We saw what happened. Then the president of America said, we did not see what we saw. But we are not talking about Trump here.
Yes, no, you're right. So let's leave the Trump thing. But just to summarize very quickly, Donald Trump pleading not guilty to 34 criminal charges during that court hearing in New York. He has now left the court after a hearing that lasted about an hour. And High Chief Akin Osuntokun, I should say, who is the Director General of the Labour Party's Campaign Council. We've got just a couple of minutes left in the conversation. What do you expect will happen next? What do you think will prevail?
Well, what I hope for is for justice to prevail. Justice as in, setting a wrong process, setting it right, because as I said, look, the weight of the evidence that we have is something that I don't know if the judiciary can survive it if it rules otherwise. It is that stark. So of course I look forward to justice being done, and Nigeria deserves it. Look, the hope of any country are the youth. Right? These guys came out to make a difference under the rules procedure that we set up, right? They went in wanting to do the right thing for this country, and then you dashed their hope in such a callous manner. Right? The results we are talking about, the result of Lagos State, right? For instance, look, was all over the place. All over, everybody had it. That's the duty of the beavers. The irony was that it was INEC itself that now subverted what the beavers were supposed to achieve. The INEC server, whatever they call it, suddenly, it was there are things I don't even want to say. But see what these guys, this is what and then of course, what makes it worse is the collaboration of the security agencies, the police especially. Right? And of course, you have been seeing synchronization between what the DSS says now and what APC is saying. They now echo one another. Right?
Right. Well, we'll have to watch and see what happens when that court case begins and hopefully ends. High Chief Akin Osuntokun, I want to thank you very much indeed for coming in. He is the Director General of the Labour Party's Campaign Council. And thank you also for weighing in on our live there on Donald Trump. Thank you very much.
Thank you.